Hello everybody! Welcome back to my channel where stories and other random things take center stage. Imagination is prized above all. Happy Saturday. I hope you guys are having a wonderful morning and will continue to have a great rest of your day. So welcome to today's video where we are going to be talking about one of my favorite classic authors. No, actually just my favorite classic author at the time. I love this author, Edgar Allan Poe, and we're going to start with literally one of my favorite stories, the TaleHeart. And I have some history with Edgar Allan Poe, and I will read as much as I can with Edgar Allan Poe. I haven't literally read all his work. I am still behind. I need to get in the train of reading some Edgar Allan Poe stuff. There's a book on Bookshare literally called Complete Stories and Works of Edgar Allan Poe. The thing is that because of the way he writes, I have some history where I used to read Edgar Allan Poe to go to sleep. I know he's mainly known for his horror, but there is apparently humor and stuff like that in his stories, which I've not read. But basically, I used to read Edgar Allan Poe to go to sleep. So I would read things like The Murders in the Rue Morgue to go to sleep. Because, and here's why it worked so perfectly for me to go to sleep. So, The Murders in the Rue Morgue is a mystery, which I will not talk about until I reread it. Because I do want to reread the story because I can't remember all the events, right? But stories like that work for me to go to sleep because in these mystery stories, usually you have two characters. You have the main character and the guy and his friend, right? At least in this one, in the Murders in the Rue Morgue, and I think it's history. I'm sorry, not it's history. It's sequel, something about Mary Rogette, but I can't remember. But basically, they're solving a mystery, and this guy somehow puts everything together, and it is explained at the end of the story. The way the way it's explained, it's like if you are watching a true crime TV show, not like an actual true crime, but you're watching something like something like Criminal Minds. You know how in each episode of Criminal Minds they're usually sitting around the table and they're profiling a criminal and they're explaining what the features and the things they should be looking for when it comes to the suspect of the the murder or kidnapping. It's kind of like that. But unlike that, you don't get several people speaking. It's written in a monologue. So you get this guy monologuing for 3 to 5 pages without a pause or with very little pauses. So that used to work and it used to make me go to sleep. So yeah, throughout high school, guys, I read Edgar Allan Poe to go to sleep. I know it's shocking, but I swear it's true. And now we're gonna review literally one of my favorite stories, The TaleHeart, the story I never fell asleep in. And I'll tell you all about my acquaintance with this. It was really interesting. A man confronts himself and an unknown listener with his desire to murder an old man. A psychological thriller with many more questions than answers. Even though this is one of Poe's shortest stories, it is nevertheless a profound and, at times, ambiguous investigation of a man's paranoia. So, this is the description I'm getting from Goodreads that I just read you. I did consume this through audio again. I will link the dramatic reading I found on YouTube, which I think was amazing, by the way. I love the dramatic reading on YouTube. But the first time I read this story, I actually definitely got a little freaked out because I read it at age 13 and I was in 8th grade. I don't know why they wanted us to read this in 8th grade, but here's the thing. No. I didn't read it in Braille. No, everybody. I read it. We had an audio playing. We had something play the audiobook. it was like I don't know what it was, but I remember it was like 2013 maybe. And we had something playing this audiobook, and I was just like, this is kind of creepy. Because reading it now, it doesn't freak me out. It just makes me, I'm just weirdly impressed reading it now. Because, and even in high school, I think my teacher definitely mentioned that I think she said something about, like, if I read Edgar Allan Poe to go to sleep, it might give me nightmares because I'm a bit of a sensitive reader. She's like, you're a sensitive person. Like, I can't picture you getting into Edgar Allan Poe. But I really got into Edgar Allan Poe. And reading it now, something like The TaleHeart actually kind of impresses me. So the writing is good. It is written in third person. And what's interesting about this is that there is no dialogue. There is no dialogue until the very end of the book. If I remember correctly, at the end of the short, there's only one line of dialogue. And everything else is kind of written almost stream of consciousness. I feel like it is written in like stream of consciousness. Like, this is what I think. It's written in sort of like stream of consciousness, but not fully. Because he's telling this to an unknown listener, which would be us, the reader. It's kind of written in a way like he's talking to us. It reads like a murder confession. As if you are sitting right in front of this guy. You're sitting right in front. Oh. No, Aylin. Not now. I'm talking about Edgar Allan Poe. How dare you interrupt me? Sorry. Anyway, it reads like you're sitting in front of this man. Like, I was listening to the story, this dramatic fact, and I genuinely pictured myself in this, like, sitting in front of this man. This unknown man whose name we do not know, because we do not get a name for him. We do not know this narrator. And I genuinely pictured myself sitting in front of him, in front of a table. Like, we were like sitting like in a room. I picture myself sitting in a room, and there's like a table separating us, and he is telling me this story, and I was genuinely captivated. Like, reading, it's a little crazy that I'm saying it like this, and I think I'm a little crazy, but seriously, I was genuinely captivated. It's impressive that I can be so pulled into a story. Like, I have read really good stories that I've been pulled into. I have read really good stories that like have like made my imagination spin. I've even thought of fan fiction for it. I've thought of a lot of things. Now, I didn't think about fan fiction for this one, but this one is different in the way that I've pictured myself in that situation. Usually I don't picture myself when I read most stories. Like, I don't picture myself in there. I picture like, what would it be like to be a friend to some of these characters, which I thought would be cool. But like, I see myself genuinely having a conversation with this man and being extremely captivated by the story of how he murdered this guy and why it happened. That is what captivates me about this story. I read it now, and it's an impressive feat of writing. I don't usually get this like really impressed, but this just impressed me in like the way that few things do. I like Edgar Allan Poe's writing because it's rich with vocabulary, but it's also very rich with like imagery, and the narrators are usually really good at like giving you like the context, but also usually the narrators, you're like right there with the narrators. Like, you feel like you're that narrator, and it feels kind of cool to feel like you're in that story, and you're not necessarily experiencing it, but you're like that unknown listener. As it says in the description that you're an unknown, that he's explaining this to an unknown listener, but you as the reader are the unknown listener. Yes, you think he's crazy, and he's trying to justify why he's not crazy in the story. That's why it reads kind of like a murder confession, but also like a confession of, this is what I did. This is what I did. But I promise I'm not crazy. I heard this. My illness only made me a better listener. I can hear from heaven all the way up to hell. And it was interesting to be in the mind of a guy who genuinely believes that he is that he is not crazy, and he's trying to justify. He knows that you, as the listener or reader, think that he is crazy, and he's trying to justify to you, no, I'm not crazy, and here are the reasons I'm not crazy. And it's like that none of these reasons are correct. Like, none of these reasons are correct. You know that he is crazy, right? You know this. But it is captivating. It is extremely captivating. The darkness in the story, the horror element, the murder itself, and the way that he confesses so very calmly. By the way, I'm sorry if you can hear that siren. He confesses so very calmly to murdering an old man who he originally had appreciation for, and who never did anything to him. And the way he describes getting rid of the body, again calmly, and also the way that he talks to, the police, the authorities. And what's really interesting about this story, though, too, is the way that it quickly it's not a shift that's like making, it's not a quick shift. Like, it doesn't feel wrong. It feels kind of right for the story. He has a shift where he's like, this is what I did, and here are the reasons I did it, to I can hear this man's heartbeat still, and I know he's dead. Like, I he knows he's dead, but he, the feeling of, you can feel how guilty he feels. You can feel how guilty. You can hear, he tells you he hears the heartbeat, and he doesn't understand how the other men that came to check in on what happened, because the neighbors reported like a shrieking. He doesn't understand how they can't hear the old man's heartbeat, but he can. You realize, the reader, that it's guilt, but he's like, I don't understand, but I still spoke calmly. But at the end, you see how quickly he's just like, he just breaks down, right? And he's like, he eventually confesses to the authorities, right? And it's such an interesting shift. It's an interesting it's an interesting horror story. It's an interesting way to, it is said it's a psychological thriller, and I can believe it, but honestly, it feels kind of like just a horror story, but with like a really good, like, it's a really good psychological exploration of the mind. And I am impressed. This was first published in 1843. Reading it now, I'm just so impressed with the way he writes. I love the way he writes. It's very impressive to me. It's a really interesting way to just explore the mind. And again, I was captivated because I genuinely felt like I was in front of this person. Like, I pictured myself sitting in front of him, and he's telling me this story, and I'm captivated by the story. So, yeah, those are my thoughts. This is Edgar Allan Poe for me. Like, I loved it. I loved it, okay? I enjoyed rereading it, and I am hoping to read more. It's also really funny that I'm actually reviewing this now. For you guys, like, in your time, it's February. February is the month of romance, and you have we have Valentine's Day in a couple of days when you guys are watching this, and here I am reviewing a horror story. Oh, my exciting moment. I'm reading. I like it. I mean, for 2021, I reviewed a bad romance. Who knows what I'm reviewing this time? But I'm extremely impressed by Edgar Allan Poe's writing, and how you feel like you were I'm part of it. Like, I felt as the reader, like, I was the unknown listener, but I was also like weirdly captivated by this obvious murderer. Like, it just has that effect. I don't know how else to talk about it. So, yeah. Let me know what you think. Have you read Edgar Allan Poe before? Let me know your favorites, because I want to know your favorites if you have. Subscribe if you're interested in more content. I should be back next week. But subscribe, turn on notifications, comment down below. I'll see you in my next video. Until then, consume stories.